Good morning. Thank you, Jack. So I would say that 8 minutes, and I'm going to look at Nick here. 8 minutes is plenty of time, right? Right? Especially at the end of session. Usually things pass with 1 minute left, right? So 11:52, which a number of us were watching. I know, Nick, you were there. A number of us were watching our texts and actually watching it on CTN, and we're very pleased that the resolution passed. And then there was also a little nuance of a statute passed at the same time, which was really very important to the effort to provide for everyone to feel good about this plan moving forward and moving toward approval. And I think I'll echo what Jack said as well, that I think it's really very important and extraordinary to have legislators, governor's office, everybody at the higher levels, commissioners, understand what the State Water Plan is and what it isn't and what it should do. And so we, and the consultants that we hired and the people that we had involved and the $1 million that we spent, a lot of people said, well, you're very unique across the country because you like to fight at every turn. You know, why don't you just get this plan approved and move it forward? It would have been easy. Well, that's not the way it is in our state. We're a small state. We have plentiful water, but as it mentioned, the plan said, the plan found out through the review of the information, it's not always there. It's not always there during the time of year that you want it. And the emphasis today, while it rains, is on really on focusing in on the best use of water and the wise use of water and most efficient and effective use of water. So I'm going to go through a little bit of detail, but I'm going to try to get through this quickly because I want to get to the end of these slides where we're talking about implementation, which is a really very important aspect that we're working on this year and have worked on toward the end of last year into this year. So the technical information, every basin, I'm going to look at Denise, there's about 44 basins. I believe there's 44 basins in the state of Connecticut. Every basin has a great level of information within the plan itself. And for the very first time, this plan is put together in one place. For the very first time. It is excellent information, and it tells you how over-allocated some of our basins are. The blue line is how much water there, in the simple terms. The blue line is how much water there is, and then these other lines show how much water is allocated to other uses. And so we look at the normal time, and then we look at stress time in July. So you can see that sometimes there's plenty of water, but if you took all the water out of the basin, then you wouldn't have enough to meet all the needs in all situations. As Jack mentioned as well, climate change, we're allowed to say climate change. We're happy to say that climate change, we're not happy about it, but we're allowed to talk about climate change. It is real, it is important. It is really important to understand the implications, and my job all day, every day, is drinking water systems. A number of water systems are in the audience today, and the effect of climate change on your sources of supply is real. Not only the quantity, but the quality. And that is something that we in the health department are very concerned about, is the quality of the drinking water. We see that there is some interesting things happening. There's new rules that water systems have to implement under our oversight of primacy of the Safe Drinking Water Act. There's concerns out there because of a variety of different things happening. We're seeing algae, green algae, in some of our drinking water supplies. There's going to be threats out there. There are threats out there, and some of it possibly due to climate change, extreme weather events that are changing times and need to be paid attention to. So climate change is a lot of great information in the State Water Plan about that. There was a lot of discussion in the policy group and the science group, the major committees that oversaw the development of the plan about what are we going to talk about, what are the priorities. We talked a lot about setting priorities, and we worked together, as Jack mentioned, with a variety of groups. A lot of people came to the table to put the plan together. You could see all the items here about registered diversions, and removing obsolete registered diversions is a big one for all of us. And making sure that we are protecting our drinking water supplies is big for our agency in the health department, but promoting and developing water conservation outreach strategies and not being wasteful with water is really very important. So, as Jack mentioned as well, there was a tremendous amount of stakeholder engagement, and we spent, while the plan was in draft form at the end of 17, we spent a tremendous amount of time going around the state, a number of us as state agency people, presenting on the plan. We actually produced a webinar, which is still, I think, up there and available on the department, actually the Water Planning Council's webpage. So if you're interested at all, it steps you through the plan and discusses what the plan is about. When we hosted meetings in the state representatives' districts, Mary Mashinsky, I saw her yesterday at the minimum stream flow event. She was so thrilled that the state water plan passed, and she looks forward to a wonderful signing ceremony with all of us. And then we held hearings, and we took a lot of public comment. So there was a legislative hearing over a year ago where we sat in front of, we thought we'd have a couple legislators, but there were well over 30 legislators coming and going, but many of them stayed. We were surprised. Many of them actually read the plan, and they asked us really good questions. The three of us were there, and we had a lot of questions to answer on behalf of legislators from both parties. Senators, state representatives were very interested and asked very good questions. So a lot went on then, and then at that moment, there was a lot of discussion about, and I'm going to say it, public trust and what that meant to everyone. And there were some differences of opinion. And of course, I always say, if something is easy and passed simply, well, then maybe it's not worth that much. But boy, this plan is worth a lot to a lot of people, and it has a lot of meaning. So it was worth the discussion and the year-long discussion that we had about public trust. Now the governor said, look, we want you, the Water Planning Council, to implement the plan. The plan did not move forward through the legislature as the law foresaw it and received approval. But the governor himself signed an executive order and said, look, this plan is so important. We spent $1 million. We had all these people come together. And you're going to, Water Planning Council, you need to work on implementation. So the governor signed that in June of last year. And ever since then, the Water Planning Council has worked on implementing the most important priorities within the plan. So just a little aspect about the public health role in the state water plan. Our agency and myself, Vicki Carrier, raise your hand. Vicki is an engineer with our drinking water section, and I don't see Eric McPhee. Where's Eric? Eric McPhee is an engineer who works on, Vicki works on system inspections, Eric works on source water protection. We're here, and I represent a group of 50 people that oversee quality and quantity of our state's public water systems. And yes, there are over 2,500 of them. Many of them are small, non-community systems with one little well, one little tank, and they serve water to the public. They could be a Dunkin' Donuts, they could be a Cumberland Farms, they could be, in my little town where I live, there's 28 public water systems because there's no major infrastructure there, there's no large systems there. They may never will be large systems in my little town. And so in Connecticut, with 169 towns, no county government, that's the way it's going to be. Unless there's an emphasis by a region or a town to want to interconnect, or there's some disaster or some issue or some quality issue that forces the interconnections to happen. So working with communities every single day is a big part of our job, whether it's a local health director, whether it's a town official, whether it's the town council that says, look, we don't want this anymore. We don't want to run out of water. We want to make sure we have sufficient supply. So we work very closely with town officials on quality and quantity concerns. And what Vicki does all the time is inspect public water systems every day, ensuring quality and quantity. We work on system capacity and aging infrastructure, which is a major problem. And everything I mentioned there is part of the state water plan. Everything that we work on is embedded within the plan in a variety of different areas. So plan implementation. The Water Planning Council is made up of 4 agencies. Unfortunately, Jonathan Harris couldn't make it today, but myself, Jack, who's the chair, Jonathan Harris, and Betsy Wingfield from DEEP who couldn't make it today, make up the members of the Water Planning Council. We are required, as under Governor Malloy and now Governor Lamont, to implement the state water plan, which is now approved. We have an advisory group made up of a broad group of people. John Hudak here is the co-chair of the advisory group that we work closely with. That's been around for a very long time, and many people have helped in that advisory group to help push the Water Planning Council when we needed help to move things along. So there are a number of things in implementation that we wanted to do. We came up with last summer, we came up with our agency's ideas and plans, and each one of us had some unique thoughts, and we came together around 2 items, or 3 items actually, and water conservation was one that came to the top for all of us. Water efficiency, water conservation, and if you recall, we had come out of the 2016-17 drought, and I'll give you a little perspective from my point of view and what the governor's office said about the plastic pipe on the Merritt Parkway when there was water being piped over ground from the Bridgeport system to the southwest part of the state. And the people in the governor's office said at that moment, why, health department, is this happening? We can't have this happen anymore. What is going on? And so since that time, we've worked really hard to better understand and characterize the supply and systems. And today, I'm going to hopefully spend my whole day here, listening to all of you to hear how we can be efficient, have efficient water use for our water supplies. Allowing people to irrigate, it's an important aspect of life in our state, but doing it wisely is also very important, and being efficient with it, not wasteful, because that's a big part of the state water plan, is to not be wasteful with our water. Because all of us work really very hard on the second bullet. And this is a key part, as Jack mentioned, these bullets. And I thought it was important to reemphasize these items. Maintaining the high quality for drinking water. We don't drink. The river that's out here is the Connecticut River. You don't drink water from that surface water supply. I hope in my lifetime, in my children's lifetime, you're never going to drink water from the Connecticut River directly. Yes, there's treatment. Yeah, there's a number of engineers in the room saying, well, I could build a treatment plant, no problem. Just put it right over here and we can treat it. We can treat for anything. But in Connecticut, our laws go way back, 100 years, protecting drinking water supplies. A law in 1971 said we're not going to allow sewage treatment plant discharges within our surface water supply watershed areas. That has been protective of public health for a very long time, and we want to continue to maintain that. But while we do that protection, we can't waste the water supply. And we have to balance and work with our colleagues from the Department of Energy and Environmental Protection on minimum stream flow, because also that is very important. To balance in-stream and out-of-stream needs. And working hard in conservation and water efficiency is really very important. Making sure we have good information all the time is a struggle for state agencies, but we're going to work hard on that. So there's a lot more to talk about, but I know that we're probably running out of time, and I wanted to give Denise time to talk about her, her work. But we are working hard together. There's a group of 6 agencies and 2 federal agencies. NOAA and USGS, along with the Emergency Management Department, DEEP, PURA, OPM, Department of Ag, DPH, work together on drought management. Another great thing we did at the end of last year was approve as a water planning, maybe not approve, but accept the drought plan, the state's drought plan for the very first time. The Water Planning Council said, yes, this is a great plan. A lot of people worked really hard. A lot of people in this room worked really hard on developing that plan and reworking that plan. And drought preparedness, while it rains and is really, kind of a rainy, wet year, that's okay. Now's the time to plan. We're coming together, we're working on items that we need to address and making sure that we understand and sort of could predict where we're headed with water supply is really very important. So there is an implementation work group that just got developed. We've met a few times, and the leaders are Dave Radka and Virginia DeLima, who are leading the implementation work group, and their members have been approved as part of the Water Planning Council, and we had a meeting this week, and we're emphasizing two things: conservation and private wells. Out of all the priorities within the plan, and there's hundreds of priorities, those are the two things that are coming to the very top, which are really very important items. And so much more to come when we start talking about those two items, and I'll ask Denise to come on up and talk about your areas. Thank you.